killed a cat when it come to him. Sure enough, the bushes were pulled back, and there and inside a few feet was Hired's lantern. Well, they know this couldn't be good, so they went on back to camp and geared up with their lights and shotgun and rifles. Walter done brought his snake pistol, and Buster had his an automatic. Jesse didn't have no pistol, but Buster told him not to worry none, because he got him one from old Charlie Snyder before leaving on the trip. Said you never knowed when you might need one. It weren't no hog leg, but one of them little automatics the Polacks use for their police over in their country. Charlie said he come by it honest and let Buster have it for a steal. Charlie knowed all the boys would do to ride the river with. Well, they took off to find Hired. Going into that hole was a bit tight, but it opened up right smart about 30 yards in. You could tell critters had been in and out and a bedding in there too. Must have been right interesting to Hired. Well, anyhow, they was worried about Hired since his and lantern was left right inside that hole, and there weren't no sign or hiding hair of him neither. They kept walking further and further into the mountain and finally come to a crevice with a wood swinging bridge across it. Jesse went on over first and had a safe crossing and told him to come on over. Well, Walter went next and then Buster. There was no mishaps. Well, after scrunching up a bit for Walter and Buster, things got a bit testy. Tighter than Dick's hat band in there, I tell you. It got so you couldn't even turn around. They call that a fat man squeeze for sure. Ain't none of them boys fat. They's biggins, but they wasn't fat. Lord of mercy. Jesse made it on through a fat man squeeze, then Walter sucked in, and I guess found himself another coat of grease, because he got on through too. Scun up a few places, but he made it. But Buster was in a pickle. Between the four of them boys, Buster and Walter couldn't take no closed up places, because they done come out of there like a dose of salsa to a mad winter woman one way or another. Well, Buster was a pretty tough cuss, but getting stuck between them rocks weren't no laughing matter to him. He went to bellering like a bull and squealing like a hog stuck under the gate. Hollered to Walter and Dusty to get him a loose from there. There just wasn't anything they could do, seeing how they couldn't go back with Buster blocking the way. Well, Walter and Jesse said they'd go on up ahead and scout out the place, but Buster wouldn't have none of it. Told them that one of them had to stay with him. Being as how Jesse was the skinniest, he said he'd go ahead and Walter could stay with Buster. Now Buster told Walter he was plumb scared of him being stuck. And Walter said he sure enough was a feeling for him and he'd stay with him till hell froze over. Jesse left on out and went on outside, out of sight there, but Walter had both his'n and Buster's lanterns, so they had the light. He give Buster a drink out of his canteen, because Buster was a bit frightful. Would have give him some of that old McBrayer, but they left it back at the campsite. In the meantime, Hired got his himself hogtied. Jesse come up on him and said, "What in the world is going on here?" Well, before you knowed it, Jesse got lassoed too. Then this spook come out of nowhere, just a bellering and a whooping and a prancing about with all manner of gyrations. Then about that time, the lights went out in Georgia, as they say. The candle went out, and the tow sack was put over Jesse's head like Howard's. Well, after a bit, there was some light, and there laid Walter and Buster trussed up like Jesse and Hired. Now, how that come to be, Jesse didn't have a clue. Wasn't long before they found out, though. Now, this here demon come back a ranting and a raving and pert near said for gospel that he'd have 'em for breakfast. Boys thought they was into some of them cannibals or something. What a fix. Well, like I told you, Walter could get a rock to talk to him. Wasn't long that their demon done took off them toe sacks off of their heads and took that outfit and mask off. Come to find out, he was called by the locals the Monster of Talus Rock. Excuse me, folks, little eyes just kind of got a little twitch to it there. Ain't nobody ever found his in lair before, and it was a certain quizzical to him how they done it. Walter told him who they all was and how they come to be there and how Hired had a way with critters and all. Well, that feller tested Hired's mettle right then and there, I'm telling you. He untied old Hired and told him to stand stock still. Well, Monster Man whistled and a wolf run in. He told Hired to make his acquaintance. Said that wolf ain't never cotton to no man excepting to him. Well, old Hired got down on all his fours and began to sniff him. The wolf bared his teeth and his hackles went up. Well, Hired just rolled over like and put his arms and legs straight up in the air. Well, that old wolf come over to him and sniffed and jumped atop of Hired and let out a howl. About that time, old Hired nuzzled that old wolf and licked him, began to pet him and talk soft like to him. Well, it wasn't long before he got up, and that wolf lay down right beside him. Well, that Monster Man told Hired if in that don't beat all, he'd see that wolf tear many a critter and man in two to bits and never think nothing about it. Lord have mercy. Monster Man told him he was Jim Rogers by way of Nova Scotia and come to be here prospecting for gold. Didn't have no people to speak of. What he was telling no other man knowed. You just gotta understand that them 4 boys was plumb believable and honest to the core. No lying to them 4. I reckon old Jim took stock of the boys and couldn't do nothing else less than he left them for dead. One question they had was how in the dickens did he get Buster out of that tight spot he was in? Well, he said he first got Walter gagged and trussed up when he went round the bend to see to the nature. Then he jumped up on Buster, and he done put a toe sack over his head. Said he was a biggin and had a devil of a time of getting him loose. He had a block and tackle in the roof there and heated up a bucket of bear grease and poured it all over Buster. Then he lifted him out of there. Said there was a hidden tunnel where you wouldn't get stuck up on the right. Buster did smell to high heaven, and they kept their distance till they got him cleaned up. Well, finally all of them settled in and all of them got cleaned up. Then they began to visiting with Jim. Now, Jim had a right nice place inside that mountain. Plenty of water and sunlight coming through a natural vent in the roof. Little lake down in the bottom of the cave. Guess it was more like an underground river, feeding it with the overflow continuing on down through the mountain. He was as snug as a bug in a rug. Jim said it never got too cold or too hot in there, and there was plenty of game and fish round about. He had plenty of stores put up for quite a spell. Well, they told Jim of where they was from and all about their folks and their people and their trip. Well, Jim said he sure enough would like a taste of that old McBrayer and he would trade for it. Well, Buster told him his money was no good. If he would show him the way out, he would get him some, or they could all go. Well, Jim whistled to the wolf and he didn't come. Told Hired he done plumb spoiled that wolf. They all went on the left and backed on out to camp. They set about cooking up a fine meal of victuals and telling their wandering story. Jim said he struck it rich in the mountain and he done had a partner that tried to steal all the gold they mined. He took off one night with more than he could carry. He was a greedy sort to the bone. Well, Jim sicked the wolf on him, and when he come to his partner, that old wolf had him treed, cornered really. His partner tried to jump across the chasm there with the gold and didn't make it. Fell to his death about 1,000 foot down. Well, after that, all manner of folks come a-looking for gold, but Jim got the idea to run 'em off, which he did as the Monster Man. 1 or 2 others got killed searching for that gold, and the legend of Talus Rock was born. Well, after visiting till late, they all turned in and got some well-deserved sleep. The next day, Jim showed the boys all the wonders of the mountains, the most majestic vistas that the good Lord ever created. Beautiful, deep, ice-cold lakes, game and fish everywhere, and a sky so blue it reached to heaven. Forest emerald green in spring and a patchwork of colors in fall, but the nights was the most spectacular. Them northern lights was truly a magnificent sight to behold. Jim showed the boys his striker. It was a rainbow of gold inside the mountain. Said if he ever kicked the bucket, he wanted the boys to have it, but would leave instructions on what to do with a portion of it. Well, Hired had to take care of the wolf, though, and didn't want him to pine himself to death, and he wanted his place here kept secret. He knew well what greed would do to a feller. That afternoon, the boys got the Ford turned around after a bit of finagling and packed up to leave. Excuse me, folks. Jim come down and was a-saying his and goodbyes when Jesse and Buster brung out a couple of jugs of old McBrayer. They give 'em to Jim, and Jim teared up right there. Said he'd wished he'd had sons like them boys, and he'd miss 'em. He said he hoped they'd come back soon. Well, Buster said if he'd heard his and Peacock call at the bottom of the mountain, he'd know it was them. Jim said he dearly appreciated these here 4 jugs of old McBrayer. Back in his day, when they was still around, it was his favourite right liquor. Well, they all looked at each other, and Walter and Hired was just a grinning. They done slipped old Jim a bottle apiece themselves. They all was a laughing when they decided to stay till morning and get an early start. Jim said him and Wolf would be back down the mountain and to see him off. They all hit the hay feeling pretty darn good with their maker in the world. Well, next morning they woke up with a noise like a bull in a china closet. When they opened up that there tent flap, there was a full-growed moose staring them in the face. They like to fell out right then and there. You just don't know how big a moose is till you come face to face with him. Guess what? Hired was out there a-petting, a-littling, and 'tweren't nothing going on except in the ma would look back on the baby and Hired every now and again. They spoke real soft-like and told Hired to get a loose from that moose so they could come on out the tent. Oh, he says she ain't gonna bother you none. They told him they didn't care, just to get her away from the tent. Well, danged if Hired didn't walk over to the ma and give her something to eat. Don't rightly know what Hired done give her, but she nuzzled him and just walked off with her baby. After what packing there was to be done and was to be put away, Jim come up. They all shook hands and said so long and that they'd be in touch. Well, Jesse give Jim a paper with all their home information on it in case he needed to get in touch with them or needed anything. The boys got him some fresh water out the stream and got on into the fort. Jim waved goodbye and went back to his mountain with the wolf. Well, Buster put her on the road and headed due west. Got out of Denver and stopped for a bit of rest and fill up with gas. When they got back in and they started to move some things around, Buster found that each of their backpacks was a mite heavy to move. He hollered to the boys and asked them, was they a-packing rocks or something? They said heck no and come back there and opened up each of their packs. Their eyes got bigger than saucers. They each had a doeskin pouch of gold nuggets in their pack. Jim done come down early and put them sacks of gold in each one of their packs. They bet he got a chuckle from Hired petting and feeding that moose, you know. The boys said they'd made a friend for life, and they made up a pact to get back soon and see Jim as soon as they could. Seems like this trip is the makings for another coming up. Due west it is, adventure and memories are coming. Westward ho. Gonna take a little break, folks. We'll finish up the second half and go from there. Be back shortly.